So this is kind of wrapping up our series on learner differences. And our last topic is students with special needs. And special needs is a very broad category. So we'll be kind of looking at it from different angles. We'll be having some kind of general things and specific things. Well, let me be more specific about what we're doing today. It's also different because most of this is going to be brought to you by LPAC members. Jane is going to start us off and she's going to talk about learners with autism and her experience. And then we will be hearing from Josiah working with special needs learners and a range of different special needs. And I just got home and I didn't have a chance to fix my PowerPoint. Unfortunately, we will not be hearing about dyslexic learners today. Margot had some issues with getting her son to school, but I will be wrapping us up talking about learning disabilities, and then we can have some time for final reflections. I know Jane has somewhere else to be. She's doing some double duty today, probably more than double duty. I think she's doing a lot today, but has generously offered to walk us through autism. So let me get her PowerPoint loaded up here and we will let her take this over. All right. Oh, I see. I see Caroline has a special guest with us. Excellent. All right, Jane, I'll let you take this away and just let me know when you want me to forward the slide. Oh, sorry, this is not, sorry, this is, that is Thursdays. That is, but it looks very similar. One moment, sorry. Oh, but now I have to.
Hi, Mina.
Hi,
everyone. Are you able to hear me well?
Oh, yes, very well. And that's
Thank
a good
you.
idea to do a sound check.
Right.
I thought I would get home early today and have lots of time to set everything up, but of course that did not happen. Okay, but now I think we are ready.
Right.
Okay.
You're good?
Take it away, Jane.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jane. I am a teacher of English and I teach young learners. That is between the age of 6 and 8. That's what I'm currently doing. I am also an official of English Language Professional Association of Kenya, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Mina, for giving us this chance to interact with the teachers. And I'm here to talk about working with autistic learners. Yes, maybe I should say I'm not expert in this. I just have a little experience, and hopefully we can interact, all of us. Yeah. So maybe I could start. If has any of you teachers worked with any autistic learners, maybe from home or maybe from school? Anyone? You could chat. You could also write in the chat. Okay. I guess there is no one. All right. I didn't think this is how, Mina, you feel being able to talk without having anyone. Oh yeah, at least I can see some few people have said something. Yes. Kesha Menza said not yet. We have Emali. We might want to know the meaning first. That's a good one. Yes. Have lived with one member of the family. Wow. Okay. Anyone? That is Anton9. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Maybe you could start with what it means by when we say autistic learners. Next slide, please. Thank you. So autism spectrum syndrome, that is what an autistic learner you could say suffers from. This is a developmental disorder caused by difference in the brain. People with ASD often have problems with communication, we have social interactions, and restricted to repetitive behavior or interest. In short, they have different ways of learning, moving, and paying attention. So I can see a few more people writing something. I can see Nancy says, no, although I am a member of a group that has parents and autistic children. If you have autistic learners, aren't you labeling? That's a good question. That's a good question. I think it's children with autism or neurotypical students. Thank you, Robert. What do the others think when you say autistic learners? You think we are labeling? Anyone? Do you think we are? Anyone with a? Mina says, I hadn't thought about that. True. I think we could say children with autism or neurotypical students. Thank you, Robert. All right. So autism is again a disorder and by difference caused by differences in the brain. We're going to look at the different how do you know that someone is suffering from autism? Next slide, please. So children with autism typically use behavior to communicate needs, wants, anxiety, and frustration. So this behavior can include fidgeting. This is repeated movement of hands, mostly hands and the legs. We have steaming. We have rocking, tapping, repeating words or phrases. You could probably be they could be communicating saying, I want a cup. So instead of just saying, kindly help me with a cup, you will say cup, 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 repetition. If you tell them something, let us go to the shop, they keep repeating shop, shop, shop. So I think as we continue, I'll give you my experience working with children, a child who has been, we have said children with autism, yes, a child who has been, I'm trying to avoid autistic. Yeah. So when we talk about fidgeting, this is repeated movement, and you'll find some of this behavior like fidgeting and steaming. It helps these learners to calm down, especially if they are in an anxious state or maybe frustrated. This is a way of just relieving stress and block out uncomfortable sensory input. So we have steaming also. Again, it still has to do with a lot of movement. We have rocking, we have tapping, we have mimicking. You could find another way of knowing that a child has some of the behavior they exhibit is self-injurious action. You see, these children they are in a, maybe for example, a frustrated state. They are trying to find a way that they can calm their nerves and maybe feel they are not frustrated. And you find some of them banging their head mostly. And when they bang their head, obviously you find themselves hurting themselves. You could find also they are very aggressive, especially if they want something, they take it by force. They could even fight back, especially if you're withholding something from them. We have also biting. So in the school where I was, it was an inclusive school where we had children, especially suffering, children with autism. in our school. So we had a special unit, but also they didn't have a specific, like they were supposed to be in that special unit for a very long time. No, they had to come to class, interact with other learners, then during the day, find some time, go to their special needs teacher who was going to help them with a few things that they needed to just maybe learn. So, so one of the students in that unit was his first time to be in school. And it was his first time to be in a place where there are so many pupils. And he was around 10 years. So since his mom, he was not in an environment that was, we could say an environment that he was used to, because most of his life, should I say all of his life, he had spent it at home. So whenever the teacher would probably come for this particular student, and the student doesn't want to be touched, actually most of them don't like being touched, and they don't want to follow what the teacher would say. That student would go on and bite this teacher. Sometimes the students would go talk to this boy, but instead you would find him biting. But eventually, when he settled down and understood, he stopped biting. But so children with autism, some will bite, others will just ignore their peers. You find probably they have gone out for break, maybe it's lunch hour, they just want to be on their own. So you find this behavior very common with children with autism, where they will just want probably to play with their toys. They'll probably want to just be on their own, move around, because most of them keep moving all the time. So I think one of the ways of just reducing that movement, mostly you find parents and also teachers are very keen on what these learners are feeding. So another behavior you'll find is they refuse to follow directives. Normally, even as a teacher, there's always what teachers expect their learners to do. So of course they will, as a teacher, you'll have to give instruction, but you find since they don't want to do it, they choose to do whatever they want to do. Also, you find them, speaking of, I'll also share my experience with a student I taught, and especially in my class. Yeah, where you find you're in the middle of a lesson and the child all of a sudden has just stormed out of class and ran away. Or maybe they could be out on recess or at break time, and instead of going out to play with other learners, you find they have sneaked off and probably gone to some other place. So that is some of the behavior that we have with children who are children with autism. Yes, thank you. Next slide, please. So as I had shared earlier, as I was saying, Nancy says, Timmy can also be seen, just do that again. Sorry. Oh, stimming can also be seen among children with ADHD, correct? Although for different reasons, for cases of ADHD, children may stim to help with focusing on a task. It's a way of self-soothing. It can be disruptive, though. That is correct. That is so true, yes. Good question. What is stimming? Someone is asking, what is stimming? I mentioned this. Nancy, would you like to share?
Hi guys, I'll try to give the definition, although it may not be very accurate because my outlook comes from the ADHD side. Stimming is a way of, it's a coping mechanism. It's a repetitive action or sound that a person or a child makes that helps them to focus on a specific task at hand. For example, they can repeat a sound. It can be a hum. It can be even perhaps knocking on a specific surface repetitively. And as they do that, they're able to focus a little better on the task at hand.
Yes, thank you so much, Nancy. That is correct. That is repetitive movements, sounds, yeah, where you can have learners could be like, yes, yes, someone want to say something? So yes.
Yeah, I want to say something about steaming.
Yes, please say your name.
I'm Robert.
Yes.
So most of the time, it does not only necessarily mean that they're trying to stay focused. Sometimes steaming can also be in a way that it also distracts them. For example, my students who are in the Department of Special Needs and Learning Support, one of them does steaming in such a way, he tries to stretch his hands and make some unusual pattern with his hands. So this tends to make them veer off the task that they were with at hand. When we say that the steaming helps them with the staying focused, maybe then we go back to the fidgeting and such like stuff, rocking the chair back and forth. But they are trying to, it is a satisfactory thing that they do. They feel satisfied whenever they do the stuff on steaming. But essentially it is destructive in the long run. So when you find your student doing this, you try to, have a conversation or prompt them to come back and do whatever task they were having at hand. So sometimes it's unavoidable, but with the training and conditioning, sometimes they reduce the tendency to do that.
All right, thank you so much. I agree with both Robert and Nancy. Steaming is a repetitive or unusual movement or noises. Again, you could have like hand flapping, head banging, jumping, making sounds. There are specific sounds where I think when they make, which is repetitive, for example, for children with autism, it helps them calm down. It's more about to cope with the overwhelming situation, like to just put it at the back of their mind, whatever they're going through, to just put it back, to just probably just have, how do I put it? Like ignoring, should I say. So again, of course, it makes them, for example, if they're in a situation and they need to focus, of course, they shift their focus from that and focus on probably what they are doing, maybe hitting the table, tapping, making those noises, because as they make those noises, they are listening to themselves. So yeah, thank you so much for that. So yeah, again, where that is a few years ago, that is when I worked with children with autism. And I was in an inclusive school, which I think it's something I advocate for all the schools nowadays. And maybe we can have someone define for us what is inclusive education. Anyone with an idea? Anyone?
Pardon?
Anyone with an idea what is inclusive education? Yes, someone's hand is up. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Inclusive education would be a situation where students or learners with various learning disabilities are placed to study together with those who have little disabilities or those who are probably deemed to be normal. The special cases such as the hearing impaired, the visual impaired, they are placed to learn in the same environment as the other students who do not have.
Yes. Thank you, Juma. Anyone else? Maybe Mina can help me pick out on those who, Josiah's hand is up, yes. Josiah, I think your microphone is on. You need to turn it on. Josiah? Okay. A few people have written something here. Emily says, inclusive education, I think, is when you take consideration of all learners. Differentiation in class while learning.
Yes, sir. Good.
Yes. And Annie says, an institution that allows children able differently to learn in a mainstream school.
Good evening.
That is all true.
Uh,
Someone is speaking. Okay, maybe you could just type something and then you're going to go back and read. Since we can't hear you well. So as everyone has stated, this is having, it's an institution or education, inclusive education is where you have the institution having all learners, those who are able differently, those who are, again, quote unquote, are not maybe physically challenged or, yes, maybe let me just say that. So in this school, it had a special unit class where, again, I said the learners were part of the classroom where the other learners are, but also had a special unit for them where they would interact with their special needs teacher. So I'll speak about a boy whom I taught in my class, that is a few years ago. And I'll just give him the name Justin for the sake of keeping his information confidential. So Justin was, I was a class teacher of Justin between when he was around 6 to 7 years old. Maybe I should state, it's an classroom, able differently. They are put together with learners who are of the same age group. Even when it comes to promotion, they move to the next class with the learners who are who have been in their classroom, despite the differences that are there. So Justin was a 6 to 7 years old boy. He was super smart. I know this is, it's always ironic, quote unquote, should I say. He was really super smart. He was really good in numbers and also very good in technology. He knew how to operate gadgets. He would type very fast. He would do a lot. If it comes to the internet, he was good at searching very well. He knew so many things. If some of the things that he knew, most of the learners in the classroom did not know. So again, this also says, this shows that just because a child has, we have children with autism, they also have, we call them special children. They might be different because of the differences in their brain, but they also have those special skills that could not be common with other children. So, something interesting about this boy was that his Swahili was self-taught. His parent had engaged him in a certain program that was called Akili Kids. And this is way before Akili Kids came to the mainstream media. I think most of you are aware of this station where we have, it's a children's station where they have cartoons. Learners get to learn what they learn here in class. That is something that was there when was introduced when COVID hit. But Justin Swahili was self-taught because of this particular program. So he would watch learn a few sounds, make a few sentences and words, and would explain for you very well. And children loved him very much. That is something that is, even as a teacher, when you have a child who is different or maybe able different, it is possible that even in your classroom, they can feel part of it, and the children know that this is also our own pupil. Maybe some of the challenges that Justin had was he could not make a complete sentence. Maybe he could have miss a few words, but once you stayed with him, you would understand what he was saying. You'd say, I would like a cup, maybe please help me with some water. He would say, please water. So when you know please water, you know exactly what he wants. Justin was, another challenge is that Justin would not sit down for a long time. So you'd be in the middle of a lesson and he just storms out of the lesson, and the children tell you, oh, Justin just left. So he could not stick at one place for a very long time. Then he was very sensitive. He was loved by children and he loved other children, but he was very sensitive. Again, unless you really had a bond and some form of friendship, it was very hard for you to maybe interact well with Justin. So he took time to create relationships. And when he had those relationships, he would treasure them from the bottom of his heart, and you would know that for sure. So the other challenge is that he was still learning how to write. In fact, he had gone to preschool for around 3 years, and then when he came to grade 1, he was still learning how to write the sounds and the letters. But this did not stop him from learning, because we have other ways of learning where we use visual aids. Like in the classroom that I was, we had a television where we would project some of the things that we were learning, and this would really interest Justin, and he would just sit down to just listen and engage and also ask questions during class time. And he loved songs, so whenever you'd have a lesson that had songs, that is something that you could find he would get interest and also say, teacher, please put for me this and this song. If it's sources of water, there was a song that he learned himself, and he knew the sources of water. So that was my experience. Of course, there were a few challenges again. Having him settle in class, you're in the middle of a lesson and he would just sneak out. Yes, before Justin came to my class, I was teaching his brother, and so whenever he of course, again, the people he loved them very much. So whenever we were in the middle of the lesson, he'd come into my class and say hi to his brother. Of course, learners understood that he was different, and they would allow him to say hi. When he says hi and bye, he goes away. So everyone understood the environment where he was. Everyone understood Justin. Maybe you could go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. So we are going to look at the strategies for handling autism behavior problems in the classroom. Now, how are we able to manage, or maybe how are we able to handle the autism behavior in our classroom? One of the things to consider is to follow a behavior pattern. First, identify the causes. The boy could be, or the girl could be angry because they are looking for a specific, maybe a book or a pen, or they need something specific. And again, as you have seen, there are different ways of how they demonstrate how they are feeling. They could steam, they could be aggressive, they could bite, they could sneak off. So whenever you understood the reason why the learners behave the way they behave, you are able to also come up with solutions for them and able to just make them calm down. Another way you can incorporate strength and interest. So every child has strength and interest. These assets can become a leverage to help children engage more in class, stay on task, reduce behavior challenges. So I'll just give you an example. He loved anything that was visual. So whenever we would have a lesson that had pictures, had a lesson where also touching was something that he was very interested. We would have a lesson where the learners get to model. These things really made him sit down and learn also with the other learners. So school staff can then incorporate the children's strength and interest into the curriculum, activities, and reward system to be prompt positive behavior. Whenever you do something good, immediately you had to just say you have done well or reward what he has done. And every time he would do that, he would always come and say, "Teacher, I have done this. See, I have done." So he wants to keep doing that to be praised, and that is a good thing. Next slide, please. So increase structure. So increase in classroom structure and daily organization may relieve stress and pressure. So modification like an organized and minimalist classroom, predictable daily schedules, yes, visual activity schedules, physical boundaries, and other routines may help children to feel calm, relaxed, and less agitated throughout the day and helps reduce stress. Yeah. Number 4, we have set and explain realistic expectations. So whenever you give them a task, it was always important to say, "I expect you to do this and this." And of course, it had to be within something that they know. So for example, that time he was learning how to write. And say, for example, you're supposed to write number 1 up to number 20. So you would tell Justin, "I need you to sit down and I want you to write number 1 up to number 10. So you see that he knows how to do it. So he would sit down, do that. And of course, since he's a young learners and as a teacher who is a teachers of young learners, there's just a way you're supposed to help learners to arrange their work. So tell them what is expected of them, good handwriting, using the correct maybe letters. If you're writing letters, is it small letters or big letters? These things might seem small, but they're actually very important. So getting him to sit down, be able to write in a straight sentence, was in a straight line, where the line they're supposed to write was something that was very key also when teaching these learners. And next slide, please. The other one is offer quiet space. It's common for students with autism to feel uncomfortable, overwhelmed, or anxious at school. This feeling builds up until the child responds with challenging behaviors. Again, for this learner who he was not in my class, but this was a new environment. There was too much noise. He actually did not like noise at all. So whenever you would find him walking and then closing his ears so that he doesn't hear that noise. So offering a quiet place in a corner, in a classroom, or in another room can help students relax and before they disrupt the classroom. So again, they had a special unit where they would be allowed to just sit down on the floor or on the mat to just interact, just have their own time, because having that quiet time for children with autism is very important. Next slide, please. So implement calming techniques. Yes. So when a student becomes verbally or physically destructive or aggressive into the classroom, the staff may respond in kind. A calm demeanor can make a huge impact, though, and often diffuses rather than escalates the situation. Yes. Listen to the learners. Let them not see you are angry at them, or just maybe try to be you expect this and this. And to be honest, having to work with children with autism is not an easy task. It is not. So you have to have a lot of patience, speak to them well, just be kind to them so that they can be able to respond and also calm down, most importantly. So implementing techniques themselves with the calming techniques themselves and with the children, you can tell them, take a deep breath, especially when they start to fidget, when they start making those noises and being aggressive. You can tell them push on a wall. Using a quiet, slow voice are a few strategies you can diffuse to reduce the tension. You can diffuse the tension, that is. Next slide, please. So please, let's go back. Now, as a teacher, maybe we can have a few suggestions and see how can you include other learners. What are some of the ways you can have the learners, the other students, be part of this classroom for the children with autism? Maybe you can write your suggestions and also raise your hand, anyone. So how do we include other students? Now, since we are having, this is an inclusive classroom.
I see Amali, Delphine, and Robert's hands up.
Yes. Maybe someone, I can see from my end.
Okay, maybe Amali, I see your name first. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the lesson. Actually, it's very interactive. One thing that I think can really help for you to include all these students, especially from the points that you've just stated about managing autism, I think if I can just pick out on one of the most important things about identifying the causes and then incorporating strengths and weaknesses, and then more specifically, you need to have very realistic goals in class and making the class friendly the way you have said. Although I have, I don't know if I have my own reservations on that, on what I've learned so far from this other system of learning, though I'll be sharing with you about that later. And then I think those are some of the most important things. And then when you are teaching these learners, make sure like they feel they are included and they are part and parcel of the class so that they are not secluded. By the way, when you are in class, these learners, they know themselves. The other learners also know them. They know that these learners have this condition. Like for example, in my class, the one that I'm teaching right now, I have a different condition that is not actually autism, but kindly related in a way, in a special manner. So other learners already know. The other learners will always want to know how you actually relate with that learner, and that is how they will actually treat that learner. So the best thing to do is you should make sure that you set goals in your class that are very clear and precise, and make sure this learner does not feel out of place in class, and also ensure that other learners are not actually looking down upon this learner.
You can take one more, Robert, and then as I conclude because of time.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
I get.
Yeah.
Now, one of the ways of including these learners with special needs is, first of all, as a teacher of the 21st century, how are your instructional material? Are they able to accommodate such a student that you are having in your class that is with the Department of Special Needs? Is he able to understand the material that you are using, or is it too complex for him? That's why beforehand, as the previous speaker has pointed out, you really have to understand this student by exposing him to the content that is supposed to be taught in the day. That's what we call pre-teaching, that you have a little session and talk to him and tell him, this is what we are going to do. And if he understands from there, then when the activity begins, he knows very well what's going to happen. And also having group consideration or group activities in consideration or incorporated into your lesson, he is able to actually come into the fold with other students and participate in whichever discussion was there. And therefore, by participating in that discussion, you have already become an inclusion champion. You should also establish an environment where you can encourage him to ask questions. You can encourage him to do presentations. If at all there was a section for presentation, you are able to prepare him with this presentation and have it polished before the aforementioned time. Therefore, at the time that this lesson begins and time for presentations come in, he is able to actually go and do his presentation. We have had students with special needs in our inclusion programs that we even took to overseas because it was included in such a way that people did not feel really his deficiency, but they felt how proficient he was. As the previous speaker noted, is that once the dynamics of these students have been understood by others, then therefore they are able to, let's say, could I use the word cover? That means they are able to also understand him and be able to accommodate him in such a way he's able to excel in his class activities. There are very many online folds where students can get to materials that teachers and students can get to have to help them include students such as Khan Academy, Socratia. You can have sites such as TeacherTube, BBC websites, which are very educative actually. When you incorporate them with your students, you are able to have a students who excel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. I think the chat section is just amazing. I wish I could read all of them, but thank you so much for everyone who is responding. I'll just finish up because of time. And we're going to look at ways we can include other learners. I think basically it's exactly what everyone else has said. Make the learners aware, be a role model to the learners. How do we treat children with autism? And also learners take responsibility of each other. And this is very important because if they see something might be harmful for the children who are able differently, even the other students, they're able to be quick to respond to that, either by informing the teacher and also doing what is necessary. So thank you so much, Mina. And also thank you all for just being here and also making this class lively. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and expertise and for doing such a great job of getting others to share their ideas as well. And I like how you and everyone have such a positive attitude towards this, because I know that working with such learners can be very challenging, but just watching your face while you were talking about the student, Justin, you could see that despite those challenges, that you clearly had such a positive association and that you were truly celebrating his strengths despite the challenges. So it's very inspiring. Thank you. And thank you. I had never heard of stimming. And so in addition to other things, that was a great takeaway. Thank you. All right. And so I'm going to turn this over to Josiah now, who is going to share his experiences working with some different types of special needs. So Josiah, I'm going to let you take it away. And I'm also going to make you Uh-oh, Josiah, where are you? He was here. And now I don't see him. Probably he is coming back. I'm guessing it was some connectivity issues. Excellent. Okay. Good. We have some nice feedback for Jane. And also, I was very impressed by how knowledgeable so many of you are in this area. I see that we actually have a lot of expertise here. Oh, and I see Rebbe, I believe Rebbe, you also have a lot of expertise in this area, but I did not know how to contact you on WhatsApp. All right, while we are waiting for Josiah to return to us, I will explore what I have, which I think you'll notice kind of builds is it, I think Jane provided a nice segue to what I will be mentioning. And if anyone notices Josiah joining before I do, please let me know. Because I know that he is very eager and ready. Okay. So I just wanted to talk generally about learning disabilities. In the classroom, we have many types of special needs. We have physical special needs, we have mental special needs, we have cognitive special needs. And so there are many different strategies and challenges, but as teachers, I think learning disabilities is one area we are primed to deal with these issues and will inevitably face no matter what. So we'll just look at how we can recognize them, what we can do to support students, and ultimately what we can do to include them in our classes. And I will say, this is not an area of strength for me, and definitely not one of expertise. And so most of what I'll be talking about comes from this article from Forum Magazine, which I think a lot of you know about. You can find it on the American English channel. Some of you have physical copies of Forum. It comes out 3 or 4 times a year. There's always helpful articles. And although it is a peer-reviewed journal, it is an academic journal. It's written in a very, I think, reader-friendly way, where you're not bogged down with so much research. So some really practical information. So if you find what we talk about here interesting, I encourage you to check out the article where they go into much more detail about these things. So when we're talking about learning disabilities, we're talking about an issue with the brain. It is a neurological condition, and it interferes with the individual's ability to store or remember, to process, or to produce information. It doesn't mean there's issues with all 3 of these. Some people just have trouble remembering. Some people have trouble kind of working through what they do remember. And then others can remember, they can process, but they can't seem to share what they know. And so it doesn't mean that these people are stupid or that they are unable. They're just having some issues in these areas. So learning disabilities affect all areas of learning, but something that really stands out is issues with literacy skills. So being able to read, to comprehend what they read, issues like that. Okay, I see that Josiah is back, and I think we are aware Josiah may have some connectivity issues, which is, I think, why he disappeared. Josiah, do you want to give it a try? Well, let's check your voice first. Let's see if we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, Mina, I can hear you. I don't know how here I am. I have some issues for being off and on. I'm very glad. I was listening to my co-host, and she presented it so well about autism. Today was supposed to talk about children with special needs, and I think it is very wide. Whatever she talks about, it's one part, the autism, which it's one of the disorders and a part of learning disability. So I don't know where to start, and at the course of time, I will go through this. Special needs children. This we can define it as a child with special needs, a child who has been necessities that other children in environment may not be able to cope like the others. He may need
Josiah, can I stop you for 1 second?
From the child or even assistance from the students. Yes.
So sometimes you're very clear, but sometimes it breaks up. So Annie suggests, and I agree, if you turn off your video, it may improve your sound quality.
If I turn off the video?
Yes, now I can hear you very well. Although now I cannot.
Okay, fine. So thank you for that. We can cut. So I'm requesting Mina if I can give you a problem today with the network, and I'm sorry for this. I don't know if you can hear me, but very fast. Can I go to the category?
Sometimes we can
Fine.
hear you, and then sometimes it just totally breaks up.
Oh, sorry. So for the sake of clarity, can I request for another session? Then I can work on the gadget.
Okay, I think that's
Will
a
that
good
be okay?
solution.
So that I don't stop the whole thing.
Yes, because I know people are very eager also to hear what you have to say.
I know.
Okay,
I
so
know.
yeah, I think that's a good solution. We don't want to miss this. And I know I've been really looking
Yes.
forward to it because I know you have a lot of experience in a lot of
Yes.
interesting areas.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So do we cut that?
Yes, let's revisit this and we'll work on your connectivity issue.
Yeah, but I can add something on autism before I close. I log off. This disorder, the way my colleague has said, students are emotional challenges and also social challenges, whereby the student or may not be able to know when he or she is hurting you, when you're feeling bad. Sometimes they're not aware of the environment. So the categories for autism ranges from you can have a student who is totally not able to learn, maybe not able to write anything, to talk, or maybe to read. We also have high function, sometimes talent. Some become very good pilots, but in a situation that they're not able to. Autism is part of with the part of special needs. And as I said, we have physical, we have sensory, developmental, and emotional. And I request that because of what we are facing now, because of the network, I can go through this next time. This one may take around 45 minutes. So
Okay.
thank you very much. Can I
Thank
stop
you.
there?
Thank
Okay.
you, Josiah. We will definitely save a space for you. And I don't know if everyone could catch it, but a point you were making that really struck with me is how kind of your emphasis on how this is a spectrum, right? So we call it an autism spectrum disorder, and spectrum meaning that someone may have a very mild case of autism. There are many people in the everyday world that I don't know, even 20 years ago, weren't necessarily diagnosed and didn't know themselves that they were dealing with it because it was so mild. Where on the other end of the spectrum, as you mentioned, Josiah, they may be unable to learn in a regular classroom because the disorder is so severe, and then people lying in the middle. So we will look forward to hearing more about that and other things. And yes, we will definitely save space for it. So I will stretch out this a little bit for our time. So going back to learning disabilities, and I think we could include mild autism in with this, but if we're talking about something on the more severe end, we may not lump a severe case of autism in with learning disabilities, it being something more severe. But generally speaking, there are many different causes of learning disabilities, but we find that literacy is one of the areas most impacted by learning disabilities. So you might think of something like dyslexia or other such things, ADHD, issues like that. It's tricky too, because sometimes students may seem to have learning issues, but it's actually something else. A student who is having trouble in the classroom may actually have some sort of physical impairment. They're not necessarily blind, but they are having trouble seeing. So maybe they can't see the board unless they're right up front, or some issues with hearing, something like that. Oh, don't worry, Josiah. You have just excited us to hear more from you when the network is better. Students may have mental health issues also, which would be something different from a learning disability. Here we have something probably more severe. And then we all may have other issues. Perhaps a learner is having trouble concentrating in class and may appear to have learning disabilities, when we may find out that actually they're just not getting enough to eat, so they can't concentrate, or maybe their situation at home is not good, and so maybe they're not getting enough sleep, or they're having a lot of anxiety, something like this. And so often what looks like a learning disability may actually have another cause. So we want to think about that. So we need to separate them. So recognizing these learning disabilities can also be mixed or confused with issues with the language learning. So students may seem to have trouble with learning when actually it's language learning that's the issue. We looked at multiple intelligences. Some people can learn new languages quickly. Some people find it very, very difficult. So maybe actually the student is able to learn, is a very quick learner, but perhaps the issue is English. Maybe they've had very limited exposure at home, and they're having issues with that. They have a lot of the same kind of symptoms as well. They may have trouble following instructions, not being able to remember what the instructions were or what the information was. They may be having a hard time concentrating, either because they have a learning disability or because they're just not understanding the language. It's exhausting to them. and then frustration as well. And so we, without going a little further and finding out more, we don't know exactly what the issue is. And we find this as a common issue in classrooms where the mother tongue is not the language of instruction. I think more research will be done on this in the future because more and more classrooms are using English as their medium of instruction, as they are here in Kenya. And so more and more teachers are recognizing, hey, there's a problem here, there's some confusion. And so we can look forward to learning more about this in the future. But at this time, there really isn't that much information. If you are somebody looking to do research or publish, this is a ripe field for it. And so we find that sometimes students are diagnosed as having a learning disability when in fact they don't have one, they have an issue with the language. So you might employ the mother tongue to find out more. I should mention here, the final point here is that as teachers, as individual teachers, we often are the first to notice issues like this, more so than parents who are dealing with their children in a very different context than we are. But as individuals, we should not be diagnosing on our own. Formal diagnosis should be done by a team that involves administration and true professionals. Of course, as teachers, we should bring this to someone's attention if we feel that there is a learning disability and if we feel that the student needs something else, some other sort of support. So now looking at support and inclusion, because ultimately, we want these students to learn, we want them to be successful. And also it may not be up to us. Inclusive classroom is the ideal because it has many benefits, but also an inclusive classroom is often kind of an economic necessity. Many school systems are not set up to have separate learning. Jane talked about her experience in inclusive classroom, and luckily they had some time set aside to individually work with the needs of these learners, but generally they were in the classroom with everyone else. So here we have 4 strategies that are intended to support learners and include them. And the nice thing about them is that they benefit everyone. So they help students with special needs, but they are also good for your, I don't want to say regular, but the average student. And so you're not harming anyone by doing this. And some of this may sound familiar to you. So first we have inclusive classroom, which is something that Jane was talking about. She worked in an inclusive classroom, and you all gave some really nice definitions of the inclusive classroom. Basically, it's a classroom that includes everyone and differentiates to make sure everyone's needs are met. So this is a classroom where students with any kind of learning disability and without are learning together, they're working together. And study after study, as also mentioned in Jane's slide, show that both types of students benefit from this situation. And so no harm is done in this kind of classroom. If it is done right, it is beneficial. If you are interested in the article, they talk about some different strategies, specific strategies or activities that can be done in an inclusive classroom. Jane's slide also mentioned universal design as something that is seen as useful in this type of classroom. It's interesting because universal design was initially an architectural concept. And the idea behind this was to design spaces, design buildings that were accessible to all. If a building, you can only get to the 2nd floor by stairs, that's not accessible to everyone. And there's other factors as well. So this originally started as an architectural concept, but was quickly brought into the educational context as well. And in the educational context, one of the main tenets of universal design is choice. And so the emphasis in universal design is choice and engagement, choice and representation, choice in action, and choice in expression. And this reminded me a lot of what we were talking about a couple weeks ago when we were talking about mixed ability and level, where we allow students to kind of choose their level or choose the way they want to engage, choosing the way they want to take in information, choosing what kinds of activities they want to do, and choosing how they show their learning. So it's something that benefits students who have learning disabilities, but it also benefits other students. As we know, students are individuals and have different needs. Scaffolding is the next strategy, and I think you know scaffolding is something I love to talk about. It's, I think, a strategy for all learners. And just to give a definition to review, this is where the teacher guides students, where we go step by step to increase the difficulty. But the goal isn't for the teachers to just push the students up. It's for the students to be able to ultimately work independently. So as the tasks become more complicated, there is less and less support. If anybody remembers, last year we talked about gradual release of control, where the teacher has less and less say in what they're doing, so that students learn to depend on themselves. And then finally, peer-assisted learning. This is where we're talking about pair work, and this is a very specific type of pair work where we have a high level and low level learner working together, and both work as coaches. The article talks about 4 different activities they do together, and the students take turns. One student reads while the other kind of assesses. One student answers questions and the other gives them feedback on what they've done. And so it gives both students a chance to be the learner and both students a chance to be the coach, and also makes for some really student-centered and active reading. And so this is seen to be as very useful. I will mention also here that one of the tenets of inclusive classroom is also clear instruction. So I was thinking about what I was saying here with scaffolding, with students becoming more independent. Becoming more independent doesn't mean that the teacher doesn't do anything. The teacher is making sure that everything is clear instructions that everybody knows about. This is part of the support that goes in there. I definitely recommend reading the article. I thought it was very interesting. So we've had a couple different perspectives today. We had a lot of information from Jane. We got a kind of an appetizer of what we'll be hearing more from Josiah. I had a little appetizer about the article, and then in the chat and in the discussions, I thought you all shared a lot of really useful information as well. So I have these 3 questions here, and we're going to finish off with a reflection in breakout rooms. So in the breakout rooms, you can talk about one or all of these questions, basically having us reflect on what we've learned today. So it sounded like some of this information you are familiar with. Was there anything that you can add to what you already know, that you knew something about this, but you learned something new? Maybe there was something completely new that you learned today, for example, stimming for me. And then finally, what is something that contradicts what you know or believe? So maybe you thought this, but you heard something completely different. It doesn't mean that you're wrong or what you heard is wrong, but it's worth looking at and discussing. So we have these 3 questions available to us, and we're just going to have maybe a 7-minute breakout room, just a chance for everybody to kind of digest and share what they've learned today. And I know some of you probably have some more interesting information that you can share as well. So I've got about 3 to 4 participants in a room. Give it a minute. If I notice that you're in a room alone, I'll move you, but I'll give everyone a few minutes to join, and I'll have this slide up so you can look at it. And I will call you back after time. All right, so the rooms are open. You can go ahead and join. I'll pause the recording. I think we have everyone back. I think now we have everyone back. Is anyone interested in sharing anything they discussed in the breakout room or sharing anything they heard in their breakout room? You're welcome to raise your hand and speak, or you can use the chat. Amali, your hand shot right up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mina, in our group, actually, we had not finished our discussion, but we had discussed the first two. It was really interactive. I really liked it. Actually, one thing that I'll just go straight away to the first part. That is something that I think we can add on autism. I think I mentioned this on the chart, and I'm not sure if I had her mention it, or maybe she mentioned and I did not hear about autism being, I don't know if we can categorize it under communicative disorder, because from the points that she explained there, I think this is a child who doesn't know how to communicate very well. Maybe he or she wants something and they are using different methodologies on getting whatever they want to get. I think that's my own opinion, though I don't know if I'm right on that or something. And then something new that I learned today, to be honest, this autism thing, it's something that I've learned today, and it's something new. I've never had that in my life. I just heard it today. Yeah, and I'm very happy that I've learned this, because in fact, in the school that I'm teaching right now, we have learners who have so many things that in fact I've never met in my life. I'm just meeting them right now. And I'm very happy because some of these things are being handled here. Like this one, I have a student who has such a behavior. It's only that I didn't know that it's called autism. Thank God today, at least I've learned that. Lastly, on something that contradicts what I believe in, it's not kind of like contradicts, but I feel like, I don't know, on what you talked about on inclusive classrooms or something. In a class setup, in my own opinion, I'm not sure if we can actually attain 100% inclusion of all the learners, although of course that one will be something maybe not applicable in Earth. I don't know how to put that. But in a classroom setup, we might have learners who have different learning disorders. So many. I didn't want to use that word though, but different learning. Let me use the word challenges. Different learning challenges. So many of them. You might get one with autism. Like I have another one who doesn't hear anything. Like I also have another one who cannot write anything if you don't write on the board. I also have another one in class who hears everything that you say, but I don't know if they just don't want to write or they have a disorder. Like, okay, including all these learners might be very difficult in my own honest opinion. So I think, I don't know what can be done so that we can achieve that inclusive classroom. Let me give the chance to other people also to speak, because I might talk up to 6:30 or something.
Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts, and I can see you're definitely reflecting. So that is awesome. Thank you. Antonine, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I found myself in group 2 with Hadija and Fancy. Now, Hadija is unwell. That's what we learned today. She tells us that she traveled and she's feeling really bad. So we keep hoping that we pray for her to recover. So we have learned, both the two of us, Fancy and myself, happens to have had an interaction with people with autism. So some of the behaviors, we could see them, but we actually didn't know what to call or why they were being done. So this class has made us understand them very, very clearly. The class has made us understand the activities, the behavior very, very clearly. Particularly this one of touching and steaming, of touching something repeatedly. I have an experience of one who keeps on, likes playing with an electricity switch. Will completely turn it on, off completely for so long until you wonder why. So after some time, he'll just leave that and then he goes and picks something. We'll always go and pick something and will insist on holding it in his hand for so long. So I think the lesson has made us get clearly the reasoning behind this. So what's something completely new we have learned today? I think we have just added. We have not seen anything that contradicts what we believe in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your reflections. Glad that it was beneficial. And Robert, go ahead.
Hello, actually, I was in group 3, but it's been very educative session we've had today, except I'm in an environment I can't share much. I just wanted to point out that there's a lot we've learned and there's so much more to learn yet. And I was feeling as if we could have another session to continue with this particular line of eye-opening sessions, because clearly there are very many gaps existing with our teachers, and the thirst for knowledge is also there, which is good. And we could, of course, have more sessions to enlighten the rest, as also we learn from each other on how to include children with special needs. We have a speaker who said that there can't be any effort, or rather there can't be 100% surety in inclusion, but there can be deliberate efforts to make classroom sessions as inclusive as possible. Because if we have a seclusion, or rather an attempt to inclusion which ends up excluding the learners, then the classroom sessions won't be of any benefits to these children who every day are coming up with different learning disorders, and there has to be a deliberate measure to accommodate them and make them feel part of the society. One of the things that I would really wish us to discuss more is from recognizing that we have students or learners with special needs. What therefore are the steps that we can take to make sure that they are included in our education systems? What are some of those measures that schools can deliberately put in place so that these children feel included and feel that they are learning? Apart from including them, are they learning from the institutions that we have in place? So that's the perspective I wanted us to explore next time. And thank you for the beautiful session, Mina.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right. We're really just scratching the surface, right?
Yes.
Of this topic. And I like your wording about a deliberate effort to include. So yeah, you're right. It might be impossible to include everyone, but we definitely can. There are definitely a good ratio of learners that can be included. And yeah, and we want to think about in life, if they're not included in the classroom, how are we going to include them in our lives, right? And especially when we talk about autism, which is very complicated. It's something that seems to be on the rise, and scientists don't completely understand why. It's not because of vaccines, although that is one conspiracy theory. But it is something on the rise, and that we really do have to learn to deal with. And yeah, there's just so much out there. Even today, in the exams at the university, there was a learner, and she isn't blind. She walked into the classroom fine, but she's clearly has some issue with her sight. And so she had a special typewriter, and they had a Braille test for her, and she answered all the questions in Braille. And I was just really amazed at how that way that she was able to be included in the regular classroom just through using this device. There are many, many excellent comments in the chat. And I see that a lot of you have a lot of knowledge in these areas. So I encourage you to please reach out to me. Again, I don't have expertise in these areas, so I'm always looking for someone. So if you are someone who has expertise in these areas, please reach out to me, because I would love to have another session on this topic. We will be having one anyways, because we need to let Josiah share his knowledge, but it looks like a lot of you have much to share with us. And if it's not this topic you want to share on, please reach out to me on another topic, because you are experienced and very educated people. You have a lot to share with us, and we would love to hear what you have to say. I want to thank our presenters today for being brave to speak in front of everyone and being organized to put themselves together. We will be looking at effective group work next, we've been talking about these different types of learners, and so I think group work is a suitable topic to go to next. And on February 21st, Rukia Mohammed will be presenting some work she's been putting together. And so I think that will be really interesting. And yes, please reach out to me if you would like to present on learning disabilities, other types of learning challenges in the classroom, or anything else. And I'll be sharing this video and that website in the chat. Thanks everybody for being here. It is always a pleasure to see you. I always feel very energized by our discussions and knowing that I am part of such such a caring and motivated group who honestly have what's best for the learners out there, and who are willing to take the time to engage in continuous learning. And Khadija, I hope that you feel better. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Bye, Mina.
Thank you, Mina. Bye.
Bye, all.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.